Welcome back. This is Unrendered. I'm Chester Cornell. My guest, Dr. Timothy Harris from the Federation of St. Kitts Nevis. Dr. Harris, welcome to the most beautiful country in the Caribbean, and I'm glad that you're here. I gather that your visit here is not an ordinary one. You're not the average Caribbean visitor, but your being here is tacit agreement to my aforementioned statement.
I want to thank you for the welcome, and I certainly do enjoy every occasion on which I visit St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Tell us, let's get straight to the point. Why are you here?
Well, I am here by and large to do a number of things. Perhaps we start with the most simple one. The most simple, but perhaps more important, is to extend the deep-felt appreciation and gratitude of the citizens and residents of St. Kitts and Nevis for the leadership role that the Honorable Arnim Eustace, leader of the NDP, has been playing in the advocating and agitating with respect to the constitutional and political crises which we face in St. Kitts and Nevis. I think it's now common knowledge that St. Kitts has become a pariah nation in terms of the parliamentary tradition and practices, to the extent that you would have to fight very hard and still be unsuccessful to find a country in CARICOM within recent vintage where a motion of no confidence, having been properly filed, has not been brought to debate nor even a vote for some 14 months. And as a result of that undue delay, the opposition forces, which are in the majority now, had been forced to take the matter to Parliament some 113 days after the matter had been held in abeyance by a government that, having lost the legitimacy, was withholding the prerogative of the Parliament to basically count the numbers, which in effect is what determines whether the motion of no confidence succeeds or not.
I'd like you to take us back as concisely as you can. This program is only 1 hour, and the complexity of the subject that we're dealing with is outside the parameters of this program. But I'd like you to give us a concise history, political history of your country, taking us back from Mr. Bradshaw, Mr. Southwell, and up to the present moment. 2 minutes.
Well, I would say Bradshaw, Southwell, Limor, and Simmons in the early years as the leaders of government from the period, say, of statehood 1967 thereabout until 1980 would be our own local leadership that had been merged in the ongoing evolution of our independence journey. And in fact, St. Kitts became independent in 1983 with Dr. Kennedy Simmons emerging as the first Prime Minister. And he was followed in 1995 by Denzil Douglas as the country's second Prime Minister. Dr. Simmons' career at the head of government lasted from 1980 to 1995, some 15 years. Dr. Douglas has been head from 1995 to 2014, the current period of time. In both instances, Dr. Kennedy Simmons started the government in a coalition with the Nevis Reformation Party in St. Kitts, and Dr. Douglas will end his with a coalition with the Nevis Reformation Party in the sister isle of Nevis.
Give us a little background to yourself. Your resume, your CV is quite impressive, some might say. You're a very bright individual, as we say in the Caribbean. Give us a brief background to yourself.
Well, I was born of humble beginnings to a Nevisian father and a Kittitian mother, and basically in the rural villages grew up with poverty all around, perhaps even while I was not very conscious of the level of poverty to the extent we were all the same. And out of that awareness too, I grew up with a father who was very much attached to the labor movement. He was in fact a union shop steward. And occasionally he would take me to those meetings, especially around what we will call conference time every year. And his job as secretary was to take notes. And as his eyes failed him, the duty fell on me to take those notes. And so I grew up being conscious of certain words like grievances and fighting for workers' rights, and hearing them through writing them and hearing them expressed at times with antagonism and so on, and eventually, you know, get to understand them more as one get more involved in the political process. So through my father, politics was around me. He was not only active in the union, but he was also active in the party. He was an indoor agent. He was a person who would check the list. It was a house from which the political meetings were being kept and the private meetings of the party were being held. And all around you were seeing things, you were seeing names being ticked on electoral lists without appreciating the significance, until I myself ended up doing the very same thing. And then, gosh, that was what my father was doing. So growing up with the politics around me, perhaps at some point in time it took impact, and when around 1992 thereabout, when the party was in the process, having been in opposition from 1980, having tried in 84 and 89 again and having lost, was in the process of revitalizing, restructuring, reorganizing.
When you say the party, you mean
the Labour Party, St. Kitts Nevis Anguilla Labour Party as it's called. It was then thought that the party needed fresh blood, as we usually would say. And of those who were there, it so happened that I was among the few young people who were there at meetings, who were there with some knowledge, and the constituents by and large thought that I represent something new, something fresh, something different. And I therefore was selected by the constituency to be their representative. Fate perhaps would have it that in the period 1990 to 92, I was pursuing a master's degree, even while that kind of political activity was taking place in Trinidad and Tobago. By 92, having successfully completed my master's with a distinction in accounting, the University of the West Indies accorded me a scholarship to pursue a PhD in Montreal, Canada. And that, by and large, perhaps should have been a shift in my approach to the politics, because the university was preparing me to come back and to serve the region as a lecturer in the capacity in the management department. However, as fate would have it, somewhere in 93, while I was still in Canada, elections were called. I was pleaded with to return because it was difficult to find a suitable alternative to come help, as it were, win the elections, and then we could discuss the thereafters. I acceded to that request, became involved in the politics, won my seat in 93. The party did not win a majority. There was a 4-4 on St. Kitts, and we had the uprisings. And Dr. Simmons ruled the government thereafter. As a result of the political disturbances which ensued, elections were held prematurely in 95. I was at home in the summer, again got caught up in continuing the participation, contested that election, won that election, contested the elections in 2000, 2004, 2010, and won. So for the cumulative period of somewhat 20-21 years, I've been a member of parliament and I've contested about 5 general elections. I serve also as chairman of the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party until around 2013, when I would have parted ways with the party then, and I serve in a variety of posts in the government, from Minister of Agriculture, Lands and Housing, to Education, Labour, Social Security, Foreign Affairs, International Trade, ended by and large in the last term prior to the election as Minister of Finance and Minister of International Trade. In 2013, was named, well, after the elections of 2010, Senior Minister with responsibility for international trade, industry and commerce, agriculture, fisheries, etc.
So quite a wide berth, a long CV, a long resume. And you, by profession, you are an accountant and you hold a PhD in administration with a specialty in accounting.
That's correct.
Do you plan to make politics a career from here on in?
I intend to give a certain number of years in the future to the politics and thereafter to take my graceful exit. I want to devote this period of time, and indeed in the new political dispensation which we are talking about in Team Unity, we are saying that the holder of the office of Prime Minister will serve no more than 2 terms. That suits me ideally because it allows me to go at a good time and to put my sights on doing other things which are important to my life, my own advancement. I don't intend to go old or very old in politics, but I want to make a lasting contribution with the last couple of years. I have amassed some 18, 17 years in government, 21 years as a member of parliament. I believe that could be usefully put to managing a government, managing a political party, and putting them in a better position than we would have inherited it.
Well, I want to use the rest of the program to get into the meat of the matter in terms of what is happening in St. Kitts and Nevis politically and from a parliamentary point of view. Is democracy being threatened? And what does this mean to the wider Caribbean, not only to your own country? You are the political leader of 2 parties. I want you to tell me about that when we come back, how that came about, and the genesis of the current crisis in St. Kitts and Nevis. This is Unrendered. My name is Chester Connell. When we come back, we continue with Dr. Timothy Harris.